Before starting the episode proper, just want to preempt things because this is a sad topic, to say the least, and it means just as much to us as it does to many of you. Salvation Army is a part of Christmas. Bell ringers outside of stores is a sign that Christmas is coming, and I personally, as a kid, loved and would beg my parents to give me change to drop into their buckets. This is a sad situation, and we have evidence. If you would like to immediately, before you watch the rest of this video, check out some of that evidence, click the card up in the top of this video or go down into the description. It'll be the first link, and you can see a compilation we put together, and then come back here and watch the remainder. Thank you, and please don't go woke.
Welcome to Wokepedia Radio. Wokepedia Radio is sponsored by Equipping the Persecuted. Galatians 6:10 says, "Therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all people, especially those who belong to the family of believers." Equipping the Persecuted fully embodies this verse as they aid and equip some of the most precious of the household of faith in Nigeria. They give physical aid, spiritual training. They set up alarm towers to alert of dangerous invasions. They build schools and orphanages in Nigeria. If there is a need for persecuted Christians in Nigeria, Equipping the Persecuted meets it. And you can partner with this worthwhile mission and find out more at equippingthepersecuted.org. Once again, that's equippingthepersecuted.org. I'm your host, Pastor Sam, and I'm jonesing to get to today's episode of Wokepedia Radio. I mean, it is going to be a special one today. But before we get to that, let's go ahead and introduce our crew with us. Like always, we have Pastor MICAH and Kyle Whitt. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing well. It's great to be back here, and great to see you back with us today, Pastor Sam.
Yeah, it's good to be back after, I don't even remember why I missed last time and maybe the last two, but it's good to be back nonetheless. How's it going, Kyle?
It's going pretty good, Sam. And I think we've got a little bit of a whiff of Midwestern weather that's blowing over the mountains because it's going to be 13 degrees this week for us.
Yikes.
That is a chilly one that you got going on there.
We'll get down to that temperature normally, but not early November. So I don't know what you blew over the mountains for us.
Yeah, we just got done here with some 70, actually almost 80 degree weather. And then it like literally weather whiplash. I mean, we just went from like 78 degrees to like 30. And it's like, that's a little tough to do that. But one thing I am glad is that, God promises us that there's going to be seasons, that we're going to continue to have seasons on the earth. And one thing he didn't tell us, though, was that sometimes you get all 4 seasons in one day when you live in Iowa. And so we are thankful for the seasons, or at least I am. I don't know if MICAH, if you are or not, because you're a transplant from Indiana where you've got that tropical weather out there. But
well, for a little bit, it was warmer here in Iowa than it was in Indiana. I had to go visit my family the other week because my mother was having some health issues, and I noticed that it was colder when I got there than it was when I had left. So I don't know, man. Iowa's just a weird place.
It is kind of strange. It is kind of strange. But, we did mention here that it is November, and it is that time of year, or just about that time of year, where you start to listen just a little bit as you go in and out the stores. And what is that sound that you hear? You hear the ringing of the bell. Just the ringing of the bell. And you know that it's time to go into, to take your loose change and to go and to put it in that red. But wait, we're going to say some things today that might stop you from putting that change into the red bucket. But it doesn't start necessarily with this year. It starts going back to last year, 2021. I had to stop and think what year we were in. But in 2021, the Salvation Army, they found itself in quite a bit of hot water, as headlines put it, asking donors to apologize for being white. And I mean,
Wow.
this really, I mean, isn't this insane? Like I remember when this first came out and I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
The Salvation Army? I mean, do you remember this, Kyle?
Well, yeah, I mean, it made the rounds. I don't think it got as the attention that it really deserved. And I think a lot of people just kind of skimmed headlines and didn't look into the details of it. But that was shocking. Like,
Yeah.
it's an organization that you just, like, they are part of Christmas.
Right, and they were not dreaming of a white Christmas, that's for sure. I mean, they were seriously telling people that they need to apologize for being white. I mean, like, that is just one of the most ridiculous things, but it's true. It really did happen. And now the response to this, though, was that they didn't really say much. They just kind of deflected and kind of just tried to go, well, let's just sweep this under the rug. Let's just, get rid of this whole thing. What they didn't do was retract, though, what was actually said, though they did remove public access to the material in question. So I don't think we're going to actually have the material that says that they were going and asking people to apologize for being white. I don't think we have that material.
Oh no, Sam, that's what we got.
Have that material.
I have.
We have that.
I made sure to save that.
Oh,
we're going to
Kyle
get some quotes from that.
I'm even more excited about this episode now. But this is what we want to look back on, is this event, to see if anything has changed and to figure out whether or not the Salvation Army is woke, or if it's still really, the Salvation Army. Because we know that wokeness doesn't produce real salvation. It's a false gospel. And so are they the Salvationless Army, or are they still the Salvation Army? So we're gonna really, really find out about this. But it's possible that you won't agree with our conclusion. I mean, it's possible. We've maybe been wrong a half of a time in our life, each one of us, so 1.5 times maybe. So I mean, it's possible that you're not going to agree with our conclusion, but chances are, if that's the case, you're probably wrong. But nonetheless, even if you are wrong, we still want to hear from you. And so go ahead and you can go to enemieswithinthechurch.com and click on Wokepedia and check out the Salvation Army profile to go and to see all of this information. And then if you're still saying, I disagree with you about your conclusion after seeing all of the evidence, you're just going out there reading it with your eyes closed and your ears plugged or something like that, but your mouth is still flapping, we would love to have you send us an email over at contactwokepedia@gmail.com. Once again, that's contactwokepedia@gmail.com. We love to get those kind of emails. But even more so, if you agree with us, we like to hear from you too. And we like to hear from you better. And now, if you agree with us, we want you to give us a thumbs up on our YouTube video. I'm not sure what it's called on Rumble, but do whatever you're supposed to do over on Rumble. A 5-star review or thumbs up, or what do you do on Rumble, guys?
It's called a rumble, and I'm not joking.
I want you to rumble with it. Yeah. One quick thing to note here, and this is important, the Salvation Army, because I don't think a lot of people realize this. The Salvation Army, it's not a parachurch organization. And this is actually something that I remember learning a few years ago when I had a friend who went and worked with the Salvation Army. It's not a parachurch organization. Actually, what is this, Kyle? What would you call the Salvation Army?
Third denomination. They
Right.
make no qualms about that. They split from the English Methodists in the mid 1800s, and they're a full-on denomination, church structure, their leadership. They have churches, and all their social work that they do. When you put clink a penny into the bucket, that's where it's going. It's going to the Salvation Army Church to then be used for this social work. So it's not some separate entity. You're giving it to a church, and this is a church.
Right. And so this is why it's important, because we're not just, this is even different than when we expose what's going on in Crew, or when we expose what's going on in, I'm trying to think of some of the other parachurch organizations, InterVarsity, and the only ones that are coming to mind apparently are college ministries. But
the Gospel Coalition,
yeah,
9 Marks.
Right. All those kind of things. This is different because this is actually a denomination. This is local churches. This is pastors ultimately that are responsible for this. It's not just that a church is overseeing this and, oh man, the parachurch thing, it grew bigger than the church. And we kind of understand that it's out of order and things like that. This, if they are woke, they're actually enemies within the church is what they actually are. And of course, if you want to find out more about enemies within the church, like learn how you can identify them and stuff like that, go to enemieswithinthechurch.com. You need to go ahead and download that video. You need to pay for it, of course, too. You can't download it any other way. And you need to go in to buy at least 15 Blu-rays because Christmas is coming up and you have 14 friends and you need one for yourself. And so you need to go and check that out. You need to go and give it to them. But you can find all that at enemieswithinthechurch.com. But we need to start off with a simple question. And I'm going to throw this over to you guys. Is the Salvation Army woke?
What do you think, Kyle?
Well, let's look at the evidence because their claim is that they're not woke. In responding to last year's controversy, they came out explicitly stating that we do not support CRT. We do not promote any secular philosophy or ideology, that we only stick to the Bible. They even pulled one of the classic things. We're not on the left. We're not on the right. We're right in, we're in the middle. We're with Jesus. So let's examine that. Let's examine their claims and see, because here at Wokepedia, when we call someone woke, we're not doing that because that's our opinion. We're doing that because we've looked at the evidence and the evidence is making that claim. So with Salvation Army, let's look at the evidence. And we have a few different areas from doing our research where we can see wokeness, a less than Christian Orthodox view of things, and one that's specifically informed by secular ideologies rooted in cultural Marxism, wokeness. So let's talk for just a couple of minutes, guys, and let's focus in on two specifically, because there's two that we really want to hit. But what are some of the places, as we've looked at Salvation Army, that we've noticed wokeness?
Well, one of the areas in which the Salvation Army, we see a lot of wokeness going on is they deny that the death penalty is... They say that the death penalty is unbiblical due to the image of God. So ultimately, they negate what God himself has said is the prescribed punishment for sin. The wages of sin is, in fact, death. All of us are under the death penalty by God himself. And then they're saying that the death penalty is unbiblical and unjust. So really, they're not even just calling the death penalty in an earthly sense wrong. They're essentially saying that God is wrong when he has prescribed a certain punishment for sin. And I mean, they think that God is the most unjust possible being as a result of that, because those who don't repent of their sins and turn to Christ, which is what we're all about here at Wokepedia, is repentance of sins and turning to Christ. They think, I mean, the reality is that they're going to be punished in a place of eternal death. That's the second death that Jesus talks about. So that's one area in which the Salvation Army has gone incredibly woke. If you take it to the logical conclusion, then they think that God is unjust.
Hey, man, it's problematic to say the least. Another thing is environmentalism. And no, they're not talking about biblical stewardship. God placed us here. And yeah, we can't just trash the planet. We can't just wreck it because we are supposed to live within it. No, they're not talking about proper stewardship, using the planet, using the resources to advance humanity. No, they're talking about alarmist, man-made climate change where man is inferior to nature and is the ultimate plague on nature. They even go as far as to connect us to the image of God. Because we're made in the image of God, we need to support radical environmentalist policies. And they connect it to racism. That climate
environmental
change,
racism.
Yeah, environmental racism. It's racist. That climate change is racist, and we caused climate change. Therefore, what's the implication?
We're racist.
We're racist. Sam,
Wow.
I'm sure that you'll wanna talk about this one. So, what's another place that they're off base?
You know, it actually makes sense that they're off base to this next one, because if you're against the death penalty, that means you're ultimately against innocent life because you have a refusal to punish the guilty. And if you're for environmentalism, that means that you're going to be worshiping the creation rather than the creator. And so therefore you're going to go and malign those who are actually made in God's own image because you're going against God's own image. And so what do we find? Well, we find that the Salvation Army, they're against they're not against abortion, but they're against being pro-life. They're pro-abortion, ultimately. They're pro-baby murder. Now, on the surface level, the Salvation Army believes that life is a gift from God, and we are answerable to God for the taking of life, hence why, they might say that we're against the death penalty and things like that. Yet, in addition to rape, incest, are brutal acts of dominance, violating women physically and emotionally, this situation represents a special case for the consideration of the termination, as the violation may be compounded by the continuation of the pregnancy. So what are they saying? They're saying, look, there are certain cases that we believe that instead of going and punishing the person who committed the crime, we're going to go and punish the innocent child inside the mother's womb. That's what they're going and saying. Especially being against the death penalty. They're saying, look, the man who raped the woman does not deserve to die, even though the Bible says he does. They're saying he doesn't deserve to die, but the baby who is produced, who has done nothing wrong, deserves to die.
Yeah, and that's evidenced by the fact that they say that the violation may be compounded by the continuation of the pregnancy. That means that they think that the baby is violating the woman by simply existing. Oh my goodness, it's insane. If you don't call that woke, I don't know what you could call woke.
Well, if you don't call that one woke, I think this next one you could call woke. And that is that, of course, they're for radical feminism. Sexism often, this is a quote from them, sexism often includes a combination of prejudice plus power. By the way, does that sound woke right there? Just starting off with that language. I mean, that sounds pretty woke. It is expressed through a where does this word come in? Systemic, structured prejudice and cultural discrimination, and can be present in family communities of faith and societal and national cultures. And this message was brought to you by CNN. No, it was brought to you by the Salvation Army.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, next they'll be pushing the myth of the wage gap and saying that women only earn 77 cents on the dollar. Oh, they do push that. Okay.
They push that heavily. And in fact, they use a more extreme gap than what you just said there. Then again, this shouldn't be surprising because they work with the UN directly on, quote, women's issues.
So then there's globalism too, which is a whole other thing that we don't even have time to get into.
Huge UN partner, if you didn't know. But Micah,
we
mentioned a few things. What are the two that we're going to spend the rest of our time talking about?
That would be critical race theory and the promotion of sodomy in transgenderism, or as they like to call it, LGBTQIA plus, triple X, whatever.
I think you forgot the P in there.
There's like a bunch of different. I'm pretty sure that I forgot the ampersand and the plus sign and the dollar sign and everything else that goes in there.
I mean, to be fair, it is kind of an alphabet soup there, but yeah, we are going to be focusing the rest of our time on that critical race theory and the LGBTQ promotion. But first, we need to have an ad from our sponsor.
Nigerian Christians are being driven from their home and killed. As radical Islam encroaches from the north, Christians are being persecuted on a daily basis, forced from their homes and put into camps. Equipping the Persecuted delivers food, medicine, and critical aid after these attacks. They provide support for widows and orphans of murdered Christians. Make a contribution of $19 per month or more at equippingthepersecuted.org. Make a difference in the life of a persecuted Christian in Nigeria.
All right, welcome back to Wokepedia Radio. And as we've been talking about the Salvationless Army, or the Salvation Army as some people call them, but we know that they are woke, and so they're not leading people to salvation, but they're promoting a wrong salvation. And as we said, we're going to be focusing the rest of our time on critical race theory and the promotion of LGBT. And we're going to start off with critical race theory. And they acknowledge here, the Salvation Army acknowledges a correct position on race. What do they say for us, Kyle? What does the Salvation Army say?
Well, and it's honestly, doing the research, seeing this, I was surprised by this, because this is maybe not a perfect statement, but it's better than even groups going against CRT have said, which is race and racism, however, were born out of sinful human design, true, and have no basis in science or biblical thought. And that's completely true. The idea of race, which was invented by, quote, scientists of the day to discriminate against people based on evolution, but it has no basis in science, and it has no basis in biblical thought either. So that sounds great. We're off on a good foot, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I mean, we're not denying that there's any differences between people. I mean, we know that those who are redheaded are the best looking, but
so true.
I was going to say, I knew I'd get at least one agreement there, but men
and
with
the most
beards,
humble as well.
Yeah, we also are the most humble. Men with beards are the best,
and with glasses
in general.
Oh wait, glasses aren't. I just remembered glasses aren't actually just an innate part of who we are.
No.
Whoa, way to be ableist there.
I know.
But unfortunately, the problem is that the Salvation Army doesn't continue with their correct views, because though they have that established, that they promote no philosophy outside the Bible, what do they actually say? Well, what do they actually say here, Kyle?
Well, let's start off with a softball one. What's their definition for a racist? A racist is a person who belongs to a dominant or privileged group. I'm not joking when I say, for anyone listening, that is softball for where we're going to go. And these are all direct quotes.
So you're inherently racist if you belong to a dominant or privileged group. So if you are in South Africa and you happen to be black, you are a racist according to the Salvation Army. That is what they're saying.
Oh, yeah. They'd probably excuse that by saying that, but they're not the privileged ones there. Therefore, they're not. I mean, it just becomes a weapon. So
it becomes a bludgeon. You can use it wherever you want.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But Micah, we talked about racist. So surely their definition of racism is better, right?
No, actually, it's just as bad, if not worse. So they say that racism is this: the prejudiced treatment, stereotyping, and discrimination of people of color, that's what POC stands for, on the basis of race. Racism is a marriage of racist policies and racist ideas that produces and normalizes racial inequalities. Now, this is where we need to pay careful attention because it's talking about inequalities. Now, the reality is they're talking about inequality of outcome, which means simply that not everybody gets the same stuff in life. Now, that's just a natural thing that happens. So, in fact, they use that because not everybody has equal outcomes in terms of race or even in terms of individuals, but they can use that then to say, well, I've been discriminated against because I don't have all of the same things that, that all of these other white people supposedly have, even though there's plenty of variation in terms of white people and other quote unquote privileged groups. So yeah, it's just as bad.
Well, and these are some other things that they say. I mean, just buckle up for these. What has not changed is that racial groups are placed into a hierarchy with white or lighter skinned people at the top, non-indigenous people of color subjugated beneath lighter skinned people, black and indigenous people at the bottom of the racial system. This is literally from the Salvation Army. Next, we've got, we must stop denying the existence of individual and systemic institutional racism. They exist and are still at work to keep white Americans in power. But if you still don't believe they're woke, here's one more quote for you. Racism is not an individual act. It is systemic and institutional. Our foundations were built on racism, and it is still strongly felt in every aspect of American life. I mean, these guys are like so woke. It's like wokeness is falling out their ears.
Man, they sound like the 1619 Project or something.
Oh,
so these are the kinds of people who believe, for example, that you could have racism operating as a system where there are no such things as any individual racists within that system, which is absolutely ridiculous. All of us know that racism is actually mistreatment of people on the basis of their skin color. That's what it really is. That would be a biblical understanding of what racism is. But they have this view that is just so absurd that you could have a racist system without any real racists in it.
They have they've done a better job of defining critical race theory than a critical race theory textbook does.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's continue on. Structural racism. So this is their definition of structural. And again, these are all their definitions from their resources. Go on to enemieswithinthechurch.com, click on Wokepedia, go to the Salvation Army profile. There will be sourced information for this. But systemic racism is the overarching system of racial bias across institutions and society. These systems give privileges to to white people, resulting in disadvantages to people of color. So again, it's only one direction. Racism is white people.
And they go and they also promote intersectionality, but like directly. This is what they say. Intersectionality, the belief that our social justice movements must consider all of the intersections of identity, privilege, and oppression that people face in order to be just and effective. Now, it all comes to the cherry on the top when it comes to the subject with the Salvation Army, is that they have some recommended resources that they are unashamedly pro-critical race theory, such as The Cross and the Lynching Tree by James Cone, Woke Church by Eric Mason. You can go and find a profile of Eric Mason on Wokepedia. We've got that. And of course, the 1619 Project, which isn't even coming from a Christian persuasion. It's literally just critical race theory that's coming out here. I mean, they're not just Christianized woke. They're just woke. I mean, like they're secular woke as well here. But we do need to move on because I want us to see this video here before we end our program or you guys listening to it. We need to hear how they promote the LGBT. So can we play that video, Kyle?
We can. I don't want to.
The truth is, I serve as part of the Salvation Army, and I am a proud lesbian.
Across our 7,686 centers of operation, you will find Salvation Army employees who identify as members of the LGBTQ community.
Being gay, being a member of the LGBT community, I don't have anything but good things to say as far as working here at the Salvation Army.
Salvation Army loves me just like I am.
No one's trying to change me. No one's tried to convert me.
Now let's look at how they handle transgenderism.
We are very culturally competent around issues of people who are transgender. We tailor the services to whichever gender they identify with.
When I was born, I should have been a girl. And I was born a boy, but I want to be a girl.
Even though I know I am a he, I feel like a she. I don't like she's. I like he's. And the Salvation Army, everyone is welcome.
She came to the safety dorm, then we were able to move her into our lead bridge unit, where she can stay there for up to a year.
That was in reference to a man, not a woman.
I went to church, and I heard this preacher preaching that Sunday morning. He said, Jesus loved all of you. The more I went, the more better I felt about myself, than knowing that Jesus loved me. But I was just turned around by the grace of God.
What does Salvation Army believe is a pillar of theirs?
One of the frameworks of the Salvation Army is social justice.
I feel like it was built for me.
Oh, that's painful to watch, and I'm the one that compiled that.
It is painful to watch, and fortunately, we don't have much time to discuss it, so we don't have to go too far into this. But
blessing and a curse there.
Yeah, blessing and a curse. So, one quick statement on what we just watched. I'll start with you, Micah.
Well, what we just watched is Satan subverting a institution that was supposed to be built for Christ. And so we see that in all manners, and we see that here, especially when it comes to the issues of sexuality and gender. God is very clear in the Bible about what his expectations are, and they have gone and violated that. And so that's all I've got to say. They are woke.
Absolutely, yeah. Kyle?
I don't think there's any way around it. They are completely woke. There's a lot of nuance and details that you're not going to catch from that video. But it's just all over the place. They're all over the place. Like when that transgender person, that man that's very confused, starts talking about a church, he's talking about Salvation Army Church.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And so what they're preaching is just Jesus loves you and you're great just the way you are.
That's right. Well, is the Salvation Army woke? Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the unavoidable conclusion, and with overwhelming evidence, which you can find more at enemieswithinthechurch.com. And you can go ahead and click there, click to Wokepedia, and you can go and find the profile that we have on Salvation Army, especially if you go and you search it there. But if you need, more evidence and with it really found there, you can go and check all that out over at Wokepedia. But they're woke. Stop giving them their money. When you hear that bells ring, just know that they are bells that were once ringing for Christ, and now they're ringing for Satan, because they are going and trying to accommodate sin rather than see people saved from their sin.
Yeah.
But that's all we have time for today. So contact us at contactwokepedia@gmail.com. Once again, that's contactwokepedia@gmail.com. And remember that Wokepedia Radio is sponsored by Equipping the Persecuted. Keep standing for the truth.